Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Korachi and this video here we will cover reporting and communication for pen testing. Now, in this video lecture, we're going to talk about the importance of communication in pen testing process, when we can have different scenarios that require immediate communication and why it is so important to have a well-defined communication channel and various contacts involved, what will trigger the communication, and outline the types of controls that can be employed to address vulnerability, and finally provide an overview of the most common pen testing finding and briefly about it. Now, communicating in real time during a pen test. Now, we should have something, we call it active two-way communication between, the pen tester and the clients. It's very important throughout the testing process to have this active two-way communication to ensure clarity, alignment, and responsiveness to emerging issue. Now, in some cases here, regularly scheduled updates are typically provided, but communication may also be prompted by specific events requiring an immediate attention or addressing urgent concerns. Like, for example, you might have for real-time communication, it is essential when critical vulnerabilities are discovered that necessitate immediate, taking care of this particular risk to mitigate it. Now, additionally, here, any changes, like to the scope of the work or rules of engagement, for example, must be promptly communicated, particularly when new testing conditions or systems are identified that could impact the agreed upon parameters. So now, think about it this way. Now, this dynamic exchange of information ensures that the testing process remains effective, secure, and aligned with the client's expectations and needs. I mean, which is the most important thing for us as a pen tester. Now, events requiring real-time communication include what? Okay, well, now, real-time communication during penetration testing is essential when specific events arise that require immediately attention or collaboration with between the tester and the client. Like in some cases here, for example, for business impact, where testing activities could disrupt normal operations, which requires like a prompt discussion to mitigate the risk. Another one here, we have the data gathering, where pen tester may require input or clarification from the client to proceed, with their testing task effectively. And here we have concerning determining false positive, ensuring that security discoveries are legitimate or threats are real, not false alerts. And we have also scheduling of specific activities, such as physical attacks or social engineering tests often requires careful coordination with the client to align with the target's operation and avoid unintended consequences. Think about it as a proactive communications, ensure that testing process runs smoothly and securely while minimizing risk to the business. Now, having a well-defined communication path is very important during penetration testing, as the result often contains sensitive and potentially confidential information. Now, to protect this information, okay, we definitely need to have non-disclosure agreements, which is basically, it's established, uh, understanding about what things to be kept confidential, and of course you're expected to strictly adhered to. Now, a clear communication path here ensures that information is shared only with authorized personnel and prevents it from being disclosed to unauthorized parties. Now, there are several key roles here that you need to figure this one out with your client. Who do you want to contact? Like I mean, those people basically think about it, they will oversee the overall process. Like for example, could be like the primary contact. Somebody is in charge here. Technical contacts, they provide specific insights or address technical issues. Emergency contacts, including the security, I mean, operations center, or could be someone in charge that, or like could be one of those top management. Okay, I mean, of course, this is all, it depends on the contract between you and the client. Now, this structured approach safeguards sensitive information while ensuring effective collaboration throughout the testing process here. Now, okay, so we have also something else like communication triggers. Okay, well, during penetration testing, there are specific events that necessitate immediate notification to relevant stakeholders to ensure timely action. Like, there are uh, many triggers. Like, for example, one such trigger is the discovery of indicators of prior compromise. That's very serious. So, which means it could reveal some evidence of a breach that has already occurred and requires immediate attention to assess the damage and implement remediation. Now, there's another one here that's very important, like critical findings, where security vulnerabilities are identified that could lead to significant harm if not promptly addressed. And finally, stage completion, which basically, think about it, it could serve as a communication milestone where stakeholders are notified as each phase of the penetration test is completed, providing transparency and progress updates. Now, these communication triggers ensure that stakeholders remain informed and can respond effectively to any possible critical development during the testing process here. Okay, so let's look at the recommending controls. Now, recommending controls is a fundamental outcome of penetration tests as the primary goal, of course, for you to identify vulnerabilities and propose effective remediation methods and mechanisms. Now, to provide meaningful recommendations, there are three critical questions that you need to ask. The first one is, okay, how was the vulnerability discovered? Well, this helps you to understand the techniques or condition that expose the weakness, what was required to exploit the vulnerabilities. Now, this identifies the resources, the tools, and access needed for exploitation. Basically, it provides you with insight into the level of risk. And finally, what controls could have prevented the discovery and exploitation of the vulnerability. Now, this question obviously focuses on identifying security measures or best practices that could mitigate or eliminate the risk. By answering these questions, penetration tester can deliver actionable recommendations that strengthen the organization's security posture. Now, most controls can be categorized into the following group, like technical controls, administrative controls, operational controls, and physical controls here. Now, okay, so when it comes to technical controls, obviously, I mean, you know that that's going to include like software or hardware solutions. Could be like a firewalls, could be IPS, could be IDS, could be like UTM. And here we have also administrative controls, means like establish like a formal process or create a new policies. Like if you discover that they don't have a specific policy, required to enhance the security, then as a pen tester, you will suggest to them like having a new policy, or you could suggest, for example, like adding a new type of policy. You can think of many, many, many possible things here. Now, okay, of course, we have operational controls and physical controls. Now, both are very important components of a security framework for the organization, because each one of them, they address specific aspects. So for example, like the operational control focus on standard procedures designed to enhance personnel related security practices. Now, these include measures like user training to raise awareness about security threats. Could be like time of the day restrictions to limit system access to authorized hours. Could be like, for example, like having a mandatory vacations to detect fraudulent activities. You could have like job rotation to reduce insider threats and ensure oversight. On the other hand, here we have the physical control, which is basically tools and mechanism aimed at preventing unauthorized physical access or damage to a facility. Now, these controls includes like security guards to monitor entry points, surveillance system to, for real time monitoring should be placed at a different location. You could like, for example, having a man traps to control access to very sensitive area like a data center, or like certain department that requires extensive protection. Bollards to protect against vehicle-based threats, biometric access controls to ensure that only authorized personnel can enter secure spaces. You could have like fences, lightning. I mean, there are so many things, and I think understanding physical controls are very important for you as a pen tester. Now, anyway, together these controls provide a comprehensive approach to safeguarding both digital and physical asset. The one I just mentioned now and in the previous slide. Now, recommending controls. I mean, we know what's the idea. The purpose of the controls is they all combine to solve security issue. Of course, we have, phishing controls. Now, we want to reduce the threats of the phishing by training employees on the phishing, which is part of operational. And phishing email report button could, that's considered a technical control. Now, looking at the remediation strategies commonly boils down to three areas here, the people, the processes, and technologies here. Now, we know that people often consider the weakest link in the security, and I'm sure you know the reason why. But with proper investment and training, they can become the strongest line of defense if they care and they learn and they become aware. That's, so therefore, implementing a formal training in security and awareness programs equips individual with the knowledge and the skills needed to recognize and respond to threats effectively here. Now, the processes here are very crucial. They have, I mean, basically, they have, it has a crucial role. As organization may unknowingly operate in a ways that conflict with the security best practices. So therefore, improving and aligning processes with the secure methodologies ensure a more resilient operational environment here. Okay, so finally, we have technologies are often the first line of defense organization considered, but they are not a standalone solution. Let's put it this way. While they provide essential tools to combat threats, they may fall short if the underlying issues with the people and the process are not addressed. So, I mean, so you need to think about it from this perspective. This is a this is a balanced approach that integrates these three areas together is very important for robust and effective security posture. Now, of course, one of the things, common pen testing finding, mitigation strategy, like one of the common things you could discover, for example, as a pen tester, while you're testing the organization, that find out that they are sharing local administration credential. That's big no-no. Each administrator should have their unique admin credential for auditing, for tracking, for security. Each system should have a unique, strong, and complex admin password. They're basically, you could have like a separate admin accounts for classes of systems, like, use different admin credential for servers, and for different servers, for infrastructure devices like Cisco and so on. And I think it's a good idea to use randomized password created via generator can be a very good choice. Now, while you're doing the pen testing, you might discover that weak password. And we know that simple passwords are easily cracked. And you want to check the policies, like, for example, like if there's a policies of the using like Windows Active Directory, domain, you need to check that what type of technical controls being enforced on the user. Are they using the minimum password requirement? Are they using complex password? Are there, is there a password history and so on? Okay. Now, obviously, you need to check the application to be used by the system. Uh, guess what? I mean, don't be surprised. You might discover like a system are storing password without encryption, and that's a big no-no. So all systems should be configured to store passwords properly using strong encryption and hashing. Now, while you check in, also, you might discover no multi-factor authentication. Okay, so that's a problem. See, it is strongly recommended to have multi-factor authentication in a different system, whether it's a user or an admin, you know. And of course, you got plenty of options over here. You can like something, like username, password, PIN, MFA, something you have, like authentication token or smartphone app on something you are using, biometric techniques as well. Also, as a pen tester, you need to check for SQL injection vulnerabilities or any type of injection attacks. I mean, you have LDAP injection attacks, you have, XML injection, you have command injection. So you need to check their website or their servers to see if they are vulnerable to any injection attacks. Obviously, as a pen tester, you need to scan the system, okay, assigned to you to scan. You need to look for any open ports or open services that it should not be open because this is not part of their policy. Sometimes administrators may be unaware of open ports, okay, because, they have so many tags to take care of it, and they're dealing probably with a complex software installation of network tools and services, so it gets sometimes a bit challenging for them, I mean, you never know, they might miss something here. Now, writing a pen test report, normalization of data. Now, normalization of data is very essential step in creating a clean and coherent penetration testing report, especially when dealing with numeric data from different resources here. Obviously, here you could have like different tools and methods may use varying scale. Like, you could have scale from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 100 to show the testing result, vulnerability, severity, and other data here. So these are different metrics used. Now, for example, like some tools might assign higher numbers to indicate greater severity, like 10 for critical issue, while others they use lower numbers for the same purpose, like 1 for critical issues. Okay, so you need to make sure you understand this very carefully. So now, to address this inconsistency, converting all numerical data to a single standardized scale is very, very important when you're writing your report. Now, this process ensures that results are presented in a uniform and understandable format, enabling clients to understand the findings more effectively and to make informed decisions about remediation and risk management here. Now, when writing a pen test report, also you might encounter something like risk appetite. Now, this means, or that means that you're referring to the level of risk the organization is willing to accept in the different areas of the operations. This concept acknowledges that risk tolerance is not uniform across all organizational function or activities here. Okay. For example, like an organization might have a, high risk appetite in areas such as innovation or market expansion, while taking risk could lead to a significant reward. On the other hand, it may maintain a very low risk appetite in areas such as data security, compliance, or financial management, where risk could result in severe consequences here. So, so you need to understand and define the risk appetite, as a pen tester, because you need to help the organization make informed decision. You need them to, I mean, once they understand, they could prioritize resources and align their security management strategy with their overall objectives and values here. Okay, so let's look at a very important topic here when you need to write a pen test report. Let's talk about the report structure. Of course, the reports will vary from person to another person, from company to another company, and the format also will be different. However, all of them, they will have title, page, and table of content. They have executive summary, scope details, methodology, findings, and remediation, conclusion, and appendixes. Now, I'm going to go over each one of them briefly, and I'm sure you could find plenty of pen testing template online. So search for this. And I mean, you could refer to this video lecture in the future, for comparison and to see. You can always pick and choose which one you want to add to your report. But in general, these you find it in every report here. Now, the first one here, you have the title page and table of content, which includes the report title, client's name, date of report, and testing organization's name. Like for example, you could have here penetration testing report for XYZ corporate, and here you have the table of content, which lists all the major sections and their page numbers for easy navigation here. Now, obviously, you need to have an executive summary, which is basically, think about it like a high-level overview of testing process, key findings, and overall risk assessment. Executive, keep in mind, may have varying level of tech savvy. Some of them they know, some of them they don't. And those are, the executive summary is targeted toward the C executive, the top level leadership of the organization. And I would strongly recommend to add business impact details, like real world examples from peer organization often included. Now, I've brief summary or just example, I mean, you could say that this report summarizes the result of penetration testing conducted on blah 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 systems from this date to this date. The test revealed 15 vulnerabilities, including like three critical issues related to database security. Immediate remediation is recommended for critical findings to protect sensitive area or sensitive data. So, I mean, I'll leave it up to your imagination. And the second part, the scope details. Now, here where you define what was tested, including systems, networks, application, and any exclusion here. Okay, and also you might include any changes in scope is very, very important to be added as well. Now, methodology. Now, this is another important thing. Methodology explains the approach and the tools used during testing. Now, think about the methodology as a technical details. Like, you could have like types of test performed. Now, this section, for example, outlines the nature of the test conducted, such as like external testing, could be like internal testing, it could be like web application testing, could be wireless testing, could be social engineering testing. Okay, so you could write, for example, like, the assessment included external testing of public facing servers and internal testing of critical database system. That's just an example. Second, the steps taken during various tests and phases, such as reconnaissance. You could mention that you did reconnaissance, you did scanning, exploitation, and post exploitation and reporting. For example, you could say during reconnaissance, subdomain enumeration and OSINT techniques were employed to identify external assets. Now, you can see how attacks were carried out. You could explain the approach to similar real-world attacks. For example, you could say SQL injection attacks were performed on a login page by injecting malicious payload to extract sensitive data from the backend database. That's just an example. Okay. For tools, you need to mention what type of tools you use. Like, for example, you could say Nmap was used to scan open ports, identify services running on external network here. Now, finally, the observation were made. This highlights key insights gained during testing. Like, for example, you could say the web server was running outdated software, vulnerable to known exploits. You could say default credential were found on the internal database system. You could say, for example, users were susceptible to phishing emails leading to unauthorized access to internal system, and so on. Now, finding and remediation. Now, this section covers security issues found, steps suggested to fix each, often the largest section, as it covers the bulk of pen test efforts. Now, so in other words, this is a detailed description of the vulnerabilities discovered, their severity, potential impact. Okay, and the remediation means you need to suggest specific steps to address each issue. For example, you could say, like, let's say if it was SQL injection attack, you could say sanitize user inputs using prepared statements and implement strict database access controls. That's one example. And here's just, here's a sample vulnerability finding. The name of the vulnerability, the impact, probability, medium, risk rating for, and the description, and what is the remediation. Like what do I need to do to fix this issue? Now, when it comes to conclusion, I mean, this is like a summary of overall test result. Basically, you wrap up the report for reader. You describe any root causes to address to improve overall security, and you may identify future testing recommendation. Now, for example, you could say the pin penetration test reveals significant vulnerabilities that require immediate attention. Implementing the recommended remediations will significantly reduce the risk of exploitation. A follow-up assessment is suggested to verify remediation effectiveness. That could be what you could include in the conclusion. And finally, for the reporting, you have appendixes. Now, it contains supporting materials like raw test data, screenshots, logs, and tool output. Like you could have like Appendix A, B, C, for example, like Appendix A, raw vulnerability scan results. For Appendix B, you could describe the network architecture diagram. Appendix C, a screenshot of SQL injection exploit. So these are just examples. So what I give you is just an idea about how the penetration testing report should look like. Like I said, you'll find a lot online. You could learn how to write it. It does require a lot of work writing reports. Now we are in the last part of this lecture. We will discuss the secure handling and destruction of the report. Now, you should know by default is that anytime you work with any client, they have sensitive information, about your client, which type information you could find, like the type of vulnerabilities and exploitation details. You have information about the system IP addresses, the reconnaissance data, employee and executive names. Now, these are very important report, and you could imagine what will happen to the report if they fall in the wrong hands here. Now, okay, so the protection and the control of access to whether the report will be electronically or physical copies is very important. Now, if it's a, digital report, then it should be encrypted. Physical reports should be stored securely. Now, now, okay, so what about the storage time? Now, uh, as a pen tester, you have to have an agreement with your client for how long you want to keep the report. Something that has to be included uh, in an agreement between you and the customer. And about delivering the report, meeting between the pen tester and the appropriate stakeholders should be held to deliver the report formally. You have a meeting, you discuss the outcome and the report and the details, and if everything is good to go, then the client will accept it and they will sign off and get paid for the work. Now, after this, there is something we call the cleanup, post engagement cleanup. So, as a pen tester, okay, you need to realize that this is very critical step in the penetration testing process because it ensures that all traces of the test are removed to restore the target environment to its original state. Like if you created a username, you need to remove that. You install certain tools, you need to remove this. So this process is essential for maintaining the integrity of the tested systems and preventing any unintended consequences from leftover testing artifacts. Now, for example, here when we talk about the cleanup, it may include like removing, like I said, any programs, like prevent any residual tools or accounts from being exploited by malicious actors. This is very important. On the second one here, removing tester created credential, removing tools. So all the stuff that you want to make sure that it has been removed. Now, why this process is important? For several reasons. One of them is for system security. It prevents any leftover tools or accounts for being exploited. Uh, from client confidence, it demonstrates professionalism and ensures the client system are left secure, and for operational integrity, because it avoids disruption of the normal business operation by removing unnecessary files or configuration here. Now, follow-up actions and retesting. Now, in some situations, some report discoveries may necessitate like retesting or other follow-up if the client wants, or based on your recommendation. So therefore, there will be a follow-up actions that should be well defined and scheduled between you and the client. And finally, for attestation of findings, especially like if you were, if you're doing work for organization like deals with the healthcare, so compliances or regulatory testing may require formal documents from the pen tester team, and the document will vary. Obviously, again, it depends on the client needs and the regulation used. Now, for lesson learned. Anytime you complete a project, there will always be lesson learned. After the formal completion of the project, the testing team should meet together to discuss the project and identify any weak areas in their process or in their methodology, and they need to work on to improve it. Okay, so any areas of success must be listed in a lesson learned and must be noted and reviewed. Now, what is the benefit? You might be asking for lesson learned process. Well, continuous improvement. It helps refine testing strategies and methodology for future projects, enhance team performance, and encouraging collaboration and shared learning among team members, and client satisfaction, which is very important, as a pen tester and for your organization, because it demonstrates commitment to professionalism and delivering high quality services. Now, finally, by the end of this video lecture, okay, you learn about the importance of communication during the pen testing process. You learn about the situation that may necessitate communication. You learn about the importance of well-defined communication path and different contexts involved, and what will trigger immediate communication. And you're able to understand various events, milestones that necessitate communication. At the end, I want to thank you so much for watching this video lecture. I hope you find it useful. If yes, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Again, thank you so much for watching this video lecture.